or startups in public procurement through the national budget, but we failed to follow through with the regulatory reforms to make the rules around public procurement more startup friendly. So I'll end here by just saying there are examples in place where they have used the public purse, the power of the public purse, and go beyond this perennial problem of, oh, there isn't enough money for the government to support these through, say, funding. Say, let's not wait for that. Let's use this already big spend, which government does, to spur small innovators and entrepreneurs, but also some call outs that we shouldn't let it encourage entrepreneurship. So I'll stop there for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Anushka. That's a wealth of information from many countries. And, there are the examples you quoted out of Dubai, Singapore, and then Australia are great examples for a cross-border learning here. While we talked about public procurement, where government is kind of stimulating, invigorating the startup economy, I'm going to place my next question to Asim. Asim, congratulations, first of all, for leading Ignite. Fantastic work there. 700 startups, more than 100,000 direct, indirect jobs, 3.1 billion revenue. You're doing an excellent job. Talk to us about, this network of incubators and accelerators. What is the government support and infrastructure for this? What are some of the things which made you successful? And where do you see these incubators and accelerator getting more and more benefit from government? And how do you play a role in innovation and attracting foreign capital? Just take us through this journey and share your insights with us, and thanks.
Sure. Thank you, Suresh. Well, like I mentioned earlier, that Ignite is the National Technology Fund of Pakistan, and we are funding a network of national incubation centers across the country. We have established so far 7 in Islamabad, Lahore, Karachi, Peshawar, Quetta, and then Faisalabad, Hyderabad also this year. So it's a public-private partnership. So being a government body, we go through the bidding process, we select a private party, and then they are responsible for selecting the right startups, excuse me, and then taking them through an incubation cycle, starting with market research, business planning, product development, product marketing, connecting them with local and international investors. So it's like a 12-month incubation cycle. So far our incubators have incubated more than 1,050 startups, out of which around 570 startups have graduated so far, creating more than 115,000 jobs, out of which 382 are female founders. Around 36% of our NIC startups are women-led startups. And then we also have a pool of around 150 mentors to guide and coach these startups on a regular basis. And so far, the graduated startups have raised around $77 million and generated revenue of around 8 billion rupees. But this is just these are just the figures for our NIC startups. If I talk about Pakistan in general, last year, Pakistani startups had a phenomenal year. They raised around $370 million as compared to, which was 5 times more than 2020. And a lot of international investors, in fact, 95% of the investment in Pakistani startups last year was by foreign investors, including some big names like Kleiner Perkins, Draper Associates, 500 Startups, Y Combinator, Next Billion Ventures, Golden Gate Ventures, etc. And and in fact, over the last 5 years, Pakistani startups have raised around $800 million against an average equity of 25%. So the valuation is around $3.2 billion at present of Pakistani startups, and expected to cross $5 billion by end of next year. And despite the global downturn in startup investments this year, as you know, investors are tightening their belts and they are focusing more on profitable startups than just growth startups. So this year also, Pakistani startups have raised more than $300 million in the first 7 months. And our forecast is around $500 million by end of this year. So this is the incubation side. We are also planning vertical incubators in different sectors, including gaming and animation, health tech, aerospace technologies, and some even energy in future. And we are also in the process of launching the first government-backed accelerator, where we'll select the cream of our startups. We'll give them funds in the first quarter, and then our acceleration partner, whoever that will be from the private sector, will work on the growth and acceleration of those startups, of course, their revenue growth. So to take them from the pre-seed funding stage to the seed funding and Series A in future. So these are some plans we have for the incubation and acceleration in Pakistan.
Thank you, Asim. Thank you very much for your inputs. From policy to accelerator, incubator, I'll now come to Dr. Fareen. Dr. Fareen, you've been a healthcare professional turned entrepreneur. Yours is a great success story out of Bangladesh. I want to understand from an entrepreneur view that how did government policy support help you to become entrepreneur, scale, you've scaled very well over the last few years. Share us your insights into, what helped you.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. So basically, I'm a founder of a healthcare startup named DhakaCast. So DhakaCast is basically a healthcare startup that I already mentioned. My background, from medical side, like I'm a doctor and I practiced almost 9 years. So it's very difficult for me to left my chamber practice and medical job and came into this, startup life. And, in 2019, I could not able to understand what is actually growth, scale up, what is the terminology of this startup world. So it's very tough for me, but I have that passion that, yes, I need to do something in a single, single evening to attend 3 or 4 patients in my chamber, rather than, to do that, the millions of people to help in a single evening. So that was my, key point to jump over the startup world. So that time I actually went to ICT ministry, ICT division. And government helped me a lot. That DhakaCast was born and raised in ICT division, ICT ministry. And then that time they helped us with lots of session, given us grants and, lots of moral support, connection, partnerships, so that we can, move forward. So that is the main turning point that, yes, there are, lots of struggles in a startup founder's life, but that is the main motivation. That is the main challenge I took to help people with my knowledge. And when I start working with diabetic patient, that time I need more partnerships. So I went again to ICT division, and they are just like family to me, and they help not only us, lots of founders, not only female founders, all of the founders that they need help from government. And, last 2 years, they actually took tremendous initiative for startups. As you know, there are Startup Bangladesh Limited company, the private venture capital fund of government, and they took the initiative, and we are the first vintage with Pathao Chaldal. So we are the first vintage and got the investment from government, and that actually moved us and pushed us a lot to move forward. That is the main point. And when I started working and my journey has begun, that time I found that policy level is not so much easier, to do the problem solving and everything. So that time I again, I told you that that is like my family. So I went again and asked lots of questions regarding policy and everything. Then they take that initiative that yes, startups need more leverage And they took lots of initiative with National Board of Revenue, NBR, then Dhaka Stock Exchange, so that entrepreneurs can come easily in stock market. So these kind of initiative actually helps us a lot for early stage companies as well as growth companies to move forward and to work our initiative better and better. So as a female founder, there are lots of challenge and struggles. I don't want to mention again that points, but when I feel low morally, when I feel lots of challenges, struggles, I just go to ICT division and talk to the people and talk to the Startup Bangladesh Limited, everyone, and they are so much encouraging and they are so much helpful to take lots of initiative. Yes, you can do this, you can do that, and that is the main triggering part for an entrepreneur to move forward. So Bangladesh government take lots of initiative for startups, and right now we are actually crossing a very milestone, lots of milestone, not a single milestone, lots of milestones. And inshallah, we will hope that inshallah next 5 years, Bangladesh will be, there are lots of entrepreneurs will be in lead. And I hope that as like ICT division, there are lots of private organizations also, they are also helping us a lot. So that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fareen. It's very interesting to hear the work relationship with your ICT division, right from you landed there to now they still handhold you in your difficult times, irrespective of your problems. I think a great example of government and entrepreneurs working together. My next question is to Mithun. Mithun, you lead one of the very key innovation societies from a very progressive state in India. I have a very interesting question for you. In a country like India, where there is a central government policies which runs across the states, and then there is a state which is as progressive, modern, entrepreneurship-driven state like you, there are need for certain state innovations, state policies. Take us through the role of central, take us through the role of state government, and what is the intersection, and how does innovation happens and where do you think a central government can play a good role, a state government can play a better role? Give us some insights.
Sure, that's a very interesting question indeed, Suresh. So let me just circle back. I think it was somewhere around 2016 that the central government, led by the Honorable PM itself, started the whole Startup India movement that you and I are familiar with. Yeah, and that's when they recognized the whole startup wave in India is taking off, and there needs to be a fair amount of thrust from the central government to catch or to ride this wave and to get it going. And one thing they rightly did was to recognize the fact that this mission needs to be driven while there is going to be a senior bureaucrat. This needs to be driven by a team that came from the private sector. So they have put in place, entities like Invest India, which are folks like me who have worked in the private sector but are very passionate about being engaging with the government for initiatives to work on policy initiatives supporting or to drive the startup ecosystem. So I think one thing they did right was to catch this early, somewhere around 2016. And what followed after that, Suresh, was, they insisted or they pushed all of the states to form their state nodal agencies. So if you look at Maharashtra, we formed the Maharashtra State Innovation Society, the organization that I represent. We were formed in 2018, and I would say we were probably amongst the early stage. There were a few that started before us as well. But what I'm trying to tell you is, once Startup India was formed, what they did rightly was to push the other states to form state nodal agencies. And if you look at most state nodal agencies that we have, including ours, it is, we have an executive team, which is from, the corporate sector. So we have a fair amount of understanding how the startup ecosystem works. So I think this has kind of worked for us also at Maharashtra State Innovation Society. And as it stands today, I think most states in India, it was very impressive for me last year. I got to know that even union territory like Andaman, is got a nodal agency. If you follow the state startup ranking this year, Meghalaya, which is a northeastern state, was amongst the top performers. So once they got most states, or if not all states, to launch their own dedicated nodal agencies to support startup ecosystem, they came up with the ranking framework. So now what the ranking framework does is, it pushes all of us, including us at the Maharashtra State Innovation Society, to drive innovations to support startups within your state. So this kind of, there's a scorecard that released. So there's a lot of healthy competition between the states. Over the last 3-4 years, this ranking has been set in place. And like I said, healthy competition. So in fact, just tomorrow, we are partnering with the Kerala government for an event in Mumbai to support women entrepreneurs. We have had a lot of collaborative events, say with the Telangana government, with the Gujarat government, with the government in Karnataka. So there's a lot of healthy collaboration that this has resulted in. Each of us is looking to learn from the others' initiatives. So there's a lot of stuff that's been collaborative also. And what's important to note is, this executive team or this particular entity is got continuity and is not dependent as to, which government is there at the center or which is there at the state. And that's, I think, very important for us to ensure, because as we frame policies for startups, we need to ensure that there's continuity for the kind of initiatives we launch. So I would say, there's a fair amount of credit to the central government for driving this whole mission, and the Honorable PM itself, speaking and giving complete trust to or recognizing the whole potential of the startup ecosystem. And due credit to the states themselves to set up independent agencies. So just to give you an idea about what we have been doing over the last close to 4 years at Maharashtra State Innovation Society, we have launched a state startup and innovation policy in early 2018, which kind of sets the roadmap as to what we would work on for the next 5 years. And some of the key aspects of the policy are, one, to set up incubation centers across the state. That's close to a $10 million project for us, where we are setting up about 17 incubation centers that are funded by us. In total in Maharashtra, we have about 55 odd incubation centers, out of which 17 are funded. Now, it doesn't mean we don't work with the non-funded, we do work closely with them as well. So out of the 10 million odd grants that we have kept aside for the incubation centers, we have mandated that 10% minimum needs to be invested into their incubators, so that there's some amount of seed capital with a maximum cap of 30% on that. And so if you look at Maharashtra, Mumbai and Pune are the two largest cities in Maharashtra. But when you're the state's nodal agency, you just can't think about these two large cities. You need to take a more holistic view and see how you can make the infrastructure available to startups across the state. So that's one on the incubation center, which is a fairly large project. Two, we try to address the area of which Anushka spoke about, public procurement. So we have a fairly robust event, a flagship event called as the Maharashtra Startup Week, where we identify 24 startups each year and we give them a government work order. And the differentiating factor about this event is, one, it's not a cash prize or a grant, but we give them a work order. So we are trying to be a platform for startups, early stage startups, to validate their product or service. And we have kept this fairly open to startups across India. If you look at most state government events, it's restricted to, but we have been fairly progressive in keeping it open to any startup in India. So that's another interesting area we are working on. A couple of other initiatives I'll talk. One, funding, although we have seen a fair amount of capital flowing into India, we have been blessed with that. We launched a 200 crore or a $30 million fund. We are just waiting for final approvals on that. More focused on impact focused sectors, because there's plenty of private capital to take care of the other sectors like D2C or consumer internet, etc. So our focus is more on deep tech, high impact sectors with long gestation. So that's another area where we are. So these are some of the initiatives we are working on. And for a lot of them, we work very closely with the central government and our counterparts in the other state governments.
Thank you, Mithun. That's quite a good information on how central and state work together, helping entrepreneurs together. I have a question for Anushka, that during your work, you've worked across Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, across everywhere. Can you throw some light on how South Asian governments are looking into incorporating climate sustainability into their policies? Given that we are looking to faster, resilient entrepreneurship, tolerant to future stocks, how do you see these SDG goals are seriously taken by government, and where do you see they can play a bigger role currently or in future? Give us some insights.
Sure, Suresh. So I think it does vary by country, but some of the common threads that I'm seeing are, one, that the private sector and industry are taking a lot of initiatives around climate, green initiatives, sustainability, and so on. Some of it is being driven by their own recognition that they need to innovate around product, around process, material innovation to be greener. Some of it is being pushed because of what the customers are wanting, and a lot of our countries in this region export a lot to markets where these demands are now becoming more and more. So that's one. I think private sector is really taking the lead. In terms of government, I see the climate and sustainability agenda happening in one track, and innovation and entrepreneurship support and policy orientation happening in another track. Okay. Most governments are doing both, but tend to be doing these two separately. And I think now the scale of this climate and sustainability challenge is so big, and the kind of solutions that are coming out from entrepreneurs are so interesting, that it's time to put these two together, especially because in many of the smaller economies in South Asia, we simply don't have the kind of massive public budgets to try and do everything. And there's a real funding, and whether it's bandwidth in terms of funding or bandwidth in terms of government attention, it is limited. So I think there is a need now to bring these two parts to converge. And this is where there's a lot, even in the economics profession, there is a rethinking now about value and where value gets created, and how you can reorient value in the economy towards things that are more responsible, are sustainability linked, and so on. And there's some amazing work from a policy standpoint happening in other countries. For example, in Scotland, where they're using their development banks to throw out mission-oriented finance, right? So the mission, for example, is something around plastics or some other sustainability things, and to trigger and promote innovation and entrepreneurship to solve those challenges. So kind of grand challenges around green and sustainability, and aligning mission-oriented finance, which the government supports, to then get the innovation and startup community also to support on that. So I think in summary, my point is that in South Asia, we see a lot happening on each of these tracks. And I think there's a lot to gain if we can bring those two parts together, support innovation, entrepreneurship towards achieving some of the sustainability goals.
Thank you. Thank you very much on it. It has been a kind of, I kind of endorse your view, at least to an extent in India, to South Asian countries, is that innovation and SDG goals are going in a parallel track. But there has been a considerable effort here also to bring both together, either in terms of clean energy or in terms of alternate energies. And so I agree with you to a point that I think there needs to be a merger of both innovation and SDG goals to accelerate entrepreneurship. Coming to Asim. Asim, you've been receiving quite a number of questions and you've answered it also. But in the interest of other viewers, I would like to take that question two parts. One is, how is your accelerators and incubators are encouraging women entrepreneurs to be a part of this journey? Two, most of them are very interested in how are you reaching urban, more than it's the urban rural areas, your things, how are you expanding, providing opportunity to it? The last question, the first is women, second is your expansion, third is, I know you've been working with government very closely, advising on them a lot of things. What are some of the policies or support system you feel that it is necessary for you to accelerate or go to the next level? And you feel that that something will give impetus to your journey? You're on mute, Asim.
Asim, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Asim.
Sorry, I just unmuted myself. So your first question was that how we are encouraging more women entrepreneurs to participate in our incubators. We have around 36% female-led startups in our NICs. So for that, we actually do roadshows in different cities, and we use social media to reach out to the rural areas. Plus, when I was talking about DigiSkills, which is our online training platform, it can be accessed from anywhere in Pakistan, and we have a lot of freelancers from the rural areas. And plus, because the content is localized in Urdu, we have around 15 freelancing courses on this DigiSkills training platform, and all of the content is in Urdu. So it is easier for the population from the rural areas to follow these training courses. If the content had been in English, of course, it would have been quite difficult for them to enroll in these courses. So localized content and our outreach programs help us enroll women as well as the rural population in our different programs. And your second question was, I believe was regarding policy, like what can be done to boost the innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystems in Pakistan, at least. What I feel like I was mentioning earlier, that almost 95% of the investments in our startups last year were by foreign investors, and local investment was just between 5 to 10%. So the government can come up with certain incentives for local investors. For example, I suggested to our tax authorities that maybe they should give a tax exemption to local investors on the amount they invest in local startups, because that will motivate them to, instead of putting their money in real estate or stocks or some other investment vehicle, that will motivate them to invest in startups. And also, we also plan on conducting investor education workshops to show them that they can make a better ROI and return on their investment by investing in startups, in profitable and growth startups, instead of risking their investment in stocks or some other investment. So that's my response. If you have any other question, let me know.
No, thanks, Asim. There is one question I have on, talk to us a little bit about, policies surrounding access to finance in your accelerators and incubators.
Right.
Because they are a very important part of growth, especially for the SMEs and the small and growth companies. So throw some light on it before I ask next.
So far, we fund the incubators, like we cover their CapEx and OpEx, which are run by a private party, and they provide the incubation services to the startups, around 200 startups every year. But we were not giving any funds to the startups. Now what we are planning is a government-backed accelerator, which will also be run by a private party, but they will have experience in acceleration. And the funds will stay with Ignite. The job of the accelerator or whichever private party is running the accelerator is to evaluate and select the top startups and then recommend funding up to a certain limit. For example, they select 30 startups from all over the country and they say, okay, this startup needs 10 million rupees for funding, this needs 20 million based on the product they are developing and for marketing of that product. So we will then fund that startup directly. Instead of giving those funds to the accelerator, the funds will stay with us, but the acceleration part, the selection of the startups, their mentoring, their coaching, taking them through a curriculum, connecting them with local and international investors, that part will be done by the acceleration partner. So that is how we are planning it in future.
Thanks, Asim. That's really nice to know. My next question is to Dr. Fahri. You are a healthcare startup, is on, you're scaling up over last 2 years. Help me understand the challenges you face, either in terms of technology, infrastructure, while you are scaling up across Bangladesh. What are the challenges for you're facing, and what are the things you would like to see either improve or can get better to help you, scale, expand?
Thank you, Suresh, for your nice question. Actually, the challenge, there is lots and lots of challenges in healthcare sector, because when we are talking about technology, communication, ICT, mainly ICT, people, especially not in capital, rural people, because we are using technology to expand our services in rural area also. So that time when we talk about technology, information and communication, that time people are not, especially in healthcare sector, they actually want to doctor touch them, to feel them, give the treatment. But in primary healthcare, we have 3 categories like primary healthcare system, secondary and tertiary. Tertiary means advanced stage. So in primary healthcare system, it is not necessary to every time to see a doctor physically. So we are trying to help people on that particular part. And in diabetes, it is all about regular follow-up and lifestyle modifications. So there are lots of challenges to people. Let people understand that yes, you can do it through online. So that is the main challenge, to motivate people. And that is actually from health side. And another thing is, everyone from government side or private side, or if I say about mass people, everyone is not so much comfortable till now with technology. They are not, they are not so much comfortable with talking to a doctor, to a cardiologist through online. So that is also, I think, government can help us. There are lots of brilliant doctors. There are lots of healthcare entrepreneurs. There are lots of policy makers who can help us in this particular area to be our voice. We are very small and early stage company. There are lots of healthcare startups. They are working, struggling a lot. But if government, and not only government actually taking lots of initiative for us, but not only government, every healthcare companies, then private pharmaceutical companies, then telecom companies will come forward to be our voice, to spread all of the information in every part of Bangladesh. Not only in Bangladesh, this is a very common problem in Southeast Asia, diabetes. I am sure that pretty much sure that in Sri Lanka, Pakistan, India, they have already this kind of problems. So we can work together to overcome these challenges. This is the main thing. And another part I will say about policy. Policy level should be changed for startups. It is not for everyone, like established business, and for startup there the policy is almost same. But now our honorable state minister, Mr. Junad Ahmed Polok sir, has taken lots of initiative, and he is doing a lot for us, for startups, to make it so much comfortable to work with policy makers. And also we are very much lucky that we got him as our mentor. So, and also I want to mention another point, that is, it is not a, a problem from Bangladesh. It is a common problem. It is a common problem in Southeast Asia. Last 2019, I went to a global program named She Loves Tech, and I met there with my Nepali friends, a Pakistani friend, Yeshal from Dotmine. And actually, we talk about it. I met with Nusrat from India. So we talked about it, and we actually agree that yes, the problem is so much common to talk about, to take initiatives and everything. So government also can help us to get the network more and more stronger, not only in Bangladesh overall, but also overall in Southeast Asia. That is the main thing. And the female founder, yes, we have lots of female founder, but if I talk about the bigger scenario, female founder is not so many. So it is very much important to encourage female, because there are lots of brilliant, meritorious female founder out there, but they need help. So we need to expand our success story. We need to expand our initiatives, struggles, challenges to people, to not only in Dhaka city, not only in capital, but also in whole of the Bangladesh or rural part of the country. So that is very much important, to let people know that yes, you can come to us and your problem can be solved, and you will get reward, or you will get something that you can achieve this milestone. So that is, I think, very much important. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Farid. And thank you for your inputs. And it's always interesting to have insights from entrepreneur while we are discussing policy and government side. And entrepreneur lens is very important. Mithun, you've been getting a couple of questions. I'll read one question for you, which is that how are these governments thinking about taking support initiatives beyond large cities? Let's say from his experience in working in Maharashtra, working beyond Mumbai and Pune, etc. That's the first question. I'll please answer that. I have a follow-up question on a different one. Maybe take us through that. How do you, try to expand to places beyond a larger urban infrastructure?
Sure, a very valid question. So if you look at the Maharashtra ecosystem, Suresh, Mumbai and Pune, like I told you, are the two biggest hubs. And to be fair, they have a good amount of access to resources. And when you're the state's nodal agency, when we need to think beyond these two larger cities. So number one, we have set up incubation centers. So out of these 17 incubation centers that we have, 13 of them are in tier 2, tier 3 towns, if you look at it. And so why is this important? So our idea is, any youngster that is looking to set up a business needs to have access to the right infrastructure as well as networks, which, the incubation centers are going to provide. So that I would say is number one, access to incubation centers across the state. Two is to have, district level initiatives. So just like, we have in India witnessed the benefit of having state nodal agencies and the kind of impact it has had on the startup ecosystem. So we use that learning and have tried to form district level startup initiative. Now, just to give you an idea, just a couple of days back, the Chief Minister and the Deputy Chief Minister launched off what we call the Startup Yatra. And the concept there is to go to every district in Maharashtra. So just to be clear, Maharashtra has about 36 districts. So we have launched this Yatra, which is, the focus is on nurturing grassroots innovation. And, we are going, like I said, going to each of these districts and giving a platform to the entrepreneurs there, just to give them a feeling that there is somebody that is there to listen to your idea. Now, you need not have a very concrete product, or you may not be in the MVP stage. All we are saying is, if you have an idea, please come forward and pitch. That's all we are saying. And, we have created a clear evaluation framework. And there is going to be, we are going to be giving cash prizes to each of these entrepreneurs that would be recognized at the state level. So that's another initiative that we are looking at. We are also trying to see if we can facilitate public procurement at the district level. Now, there are a lot of problems that are being faced within the district itself. So can we have entrepreneurs from those districts that can solve problem, and can we, so there is a component of the district level budget that is allocated for innovation. So we are trying to see if we can make use of this budget to back entrepreneurs that can solve problems for the district. So that's another area, public, which is a form of public procurement. We are also organizing grant challenges, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with as to what it tries to solve. So pick up common problems that are there at various, say district level or department level, and see if we can source solutions for those from various startups across the state. So that's another area we are looking at. Another initiative that we very recently partnered with an entity called as Tata Strive, which is part of the Tata Group, to work on an ignition grant program, which we are hoping to launch in the coming months. So there again, so most of our initiatives, I would say, are focused on the early stage entrepreneurs, because quite clearly, we believe that once a startup achieves size and scale, the best thing the government can do is, stay away and, just allow them to perform. So at the ignition grant, so it's a 5-year program we are looking at, wherein each year we would look to support 200 young entrepreneurs with, it's a small grant. It's close to about $3,000 US. That's what we are trying to do, but we want to do this at a mass scale, which is why, and we are looking to do this as a 5-year project and not as a one-time thing. So these are some of the initiatives which we have, to support the rural entrepreneurs. Now, one very important role that we try to play is the kind of access to networks that startups in tier 2, tier 3 have is very different from the access to networks that startups. So very actively we engage with various incubation centers that are there in tier 2, tier 3 towns to make sure that, we can make up for those. It could be like if you want to organize an investor connect session in a metro is very different, because, you can just, through an email or pick up the phone and get at least 15, 20 investors. It's not usually that easy when it comes to setting up something like this in tier 2. So there we try and, as the state's nodal agency, leverage our network to see if we can, drive in people who can drive in mentors, prospective investors, or, corporates for that matter, who can support these startups that are there in tier 2, tier 3 towns. And another very interesting initiative that we are on the verge of launching, it's called the Virtual Incubation Center Project. This is a very ambitious project of ours, for which we have partnered with an entity called as 91 Springboard. And the idea there is, we have identified most of the key products and services that startups today require. And we have then zeroed down on quality service providers or vendors for each of these. And then we would be onboarding all of these service providers onto a virtual platform. Now, the idea here is, an entrepreneur who's building his business in a tier 3 town should or must have access to quality service providers as good as an entrepreneur in a tier 1 metro city has. So we want to democratize this entire process to make sure that regardless of where you are located, you have access to quality service providers or vendors. It could be right from accessing cloud credits to legal partners to marketing tools, could be anything. We have tried to cover most aspects as to what an early stage entrepreneur would require. Now, apart from, so while we have these bunch of initiatives that we have from the government, we also recognize the value that private people can bring, or it could be not for profit or international government agencies. So we truly believe we are in an era of collaboration. So we engage with various private partners, like we are doing something with your esteemed organization, GAME, where we are trying to see if we can do the Women Entrepreneurship Scorecard program, or we are doing that initiative where we would be spotting a bunch of innovators and trying to support and see what we can do. So we believe it's very important to engage, and we do that on a very continuous basis. Engage with various partners that are there. Not everything is possible to be done by the government. So engage with like-minded folks and see how we can maximize impact, is how I would like to sum this up.
Thank you, Mithun. That's very interesting to see your virtual incubation center idea, which itself kind of provide a deep reach into the states. And also your other innovative like women entrepreneurship policy and scorecard, what you're creating, definitely, help women entrepreneurship, activities to grow faster. I have a question towards Anushka. While we are continuously talking about startup and digitizations and tech and other things, what about entrepreneurships at agri, at energy, those kind of rural levels? How do government's policies are framed across South Asia, especially in Sri Lanka, to support some of these activities?
Yes, Suresh, you're absolutely right. And I think there was a comment earlier also about agriculture being a big part of our economies. And sometimes in many of our ecosystems, there's quite a dominance of tech and digital. But I think we have immense opportunity to create new entrepreneurs in agriculture. And here, there are some things that the government has a role to play in supporting. And it's in somewhat unsexy areas. For example, the quality infrastructure. So most of the time, startups and new entrepreneurs in the agriculture sector fail because they're unable to meet quality standard certification requirements of the market, especially those entrepreneurs who want to get into export markets. And I think here is where the government can help. Most institutions in this space, testing and certification labs, are very much large business biased. They don't know how to talk to small entrepreneurs. They don't know how to talk to and offer their services to startups. It's been historically because of how those institutions have been structured. Sometimes they might charge the kind of fees that startups or new entrepreneurs can't afford. And sometimes there may be an absence of those institutions in your market, and startups and entrepreneurs may have to send their samples, agriculture samples, etc., to foreign markets. Like I know in Sri Lanka, a lot of these startups in agriculture have to send their samples to India or even Singapore for testing. This is prohibitively expensive, right? And increasingly in international trade, it isn't about border tariffs so much that determine your ability to export. It's actually those standards and quality and certifications that hold you back at the border. So during the, I'll give an example. During the work we did on the innovation and entrepreneurship strategy, we held a marketplace for services. So we got all these government institutions like the testing labs, the certification institutes, all of the technology extension people to set up desks and stalls. And we got entrepreneurs and startups to come in, and we gave them virtual money. It was like a pretend marketplace, if you will. We give them virtual money, and we told them, go around and buy services from these institutions. It was kind of an experiment. This whole exercise did a few things. On one hand, it helped the entrepreneurs realize what services are actually available. Some of them were sending their samples to Singapore when they didn't know that there was a local testing lab, or they didn't even know that they needed to get some agriculture related standards and certifications as a new startup. So it revealed what services are available in the market. Two, on the institution side, it helped them understand what these new young entrepreneurs want from them. They had never thought of this as a target group for their work, and they understood maybe we can't approach them like a big company. We have to tailor our solutions and so on. And thirdly, it kind of revealed prices of these services because we gave them virtual money to go and spend in these stalls. And it revealed the price of the willingness to play and the price of for these entrepreneurs. And then it revealed how much the government then might need to come and co-finance or give some matching grants or matching funding. So I think this was quite interesting. It's often a relatively unsexy area, quality standards, certifications. We like to talk about the funding and the acceleration, but this aspect really holds entrepreneurs and innovators in agriculture and processed food and beverage back. So yeah, that's a point I would just make there.
Thanks, Anushka. That insight about, relevant information available to entrepreneurs. Your example of entrepreneurs going to Singapore when there is a next door, testing place is a very good example of how it's not just enough to create infrastructure and systems, but it is also important to amplify information, communicate availability of those to the entrepreneurs. Asim, I have a very interesting question for you because I believe you're in a better space to answer it. Across South Asia, it has been a commonly articulated, represented, and analyzed that ease of doing business is a tough one for entrepreneurs. One from a startup perspective, although it can be easy to sustain an established firm in terms of compliances, statutory processes become. How are you looking in to advise government and other bodies in ease of doing business because you are at the center of the startup? You're on mute, Asim.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Suresh. Yeah, regarding this improving ease of doing business, actually, we are conducting a study with a research firm on, we are surveying different startups and stakeholders in the ecosystem on what are the different hurdles and impediments and obstacles which are being faced by startups and how we can overcome them so that we come up with some policy recommendations for the government. One of the issues we realized was that it has to do with the repatriation and conversion issues. A lot of the Pakistani startups have holding companies outside Pakistan. So their investors invest in the holding companies, and then that money trickles down to the startup on a quarterly basis. What we are proposing to the government is to allow foreign currency accounts to startups so that that Forex can be parked locally in Pakistan, in Pakistani startups, instead of in holding companies abroad. And then there's also a conversion issue because the central bank allows them to retain only 35% in Forex, and the rest gets converted to the local currency. So if your currency is devaluing on a regular basis, that doesn't motivate the investor to risk putting their Forex locally. So we are also recommending to the government to allow 100% retention in Forex to startups. This will be my response for improving ease of doing business and for motivating startups to put more Forex in startups in the country instead of parking it abroad. But I have a question regarding sustainability from the panel members, because so far, government of Pakistan has been fully funding all of these 7 incubators I mentioned. We funded their CapEx. We are funding their OpEx every year. So in other countries like India and Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, does the government split the OpEx cost, or how do they make, what happens? Let's say we have a 5-year contract with them. So what will happen after 5 years? Will the incubator be expected to fully fund their operations from the 6th year, or does the government's contribution start reducing from that, or they ask the incubators to start making money by offering different incubation services? how are they making their incubators sustainable in their countries?
So I'll let first Mithun take a stab at that question, and then I'll move to Anushka to answer the same question.
Okay.
And then after these two questions, I'll probably do the summary.
Okay. Okay, thank
Yeah, sure. Asim, I'm happy to take that because that's something which we actually did a lot of thinking over, maybe about 3-4 years back when we were rolling out our incubation program, the whole sustainability part, right? So what we have been pushing our incubation centers to do is number one, tap multiple funding channels. So so just to give you an overview, in India, while state governments fund incubation centers, there's also a pool that's available from the central government. So we tell them that tap as many channels as you can. Okay, so that's one. Number two, and we feel this is more relevant, is take equity in the startups that you are, incubating. Now, this depends on how mature the startup ecosystem is in our respective geographies. But as far where we are placed, we feel, this is one way where, incubation centers can obtain sustainability in the long term. Whether it happens in 5 years, 7 years, 8 years is a different thing. But this is another thing that we have insisted on. And what we have also done, we went one step further and we told our incubation center, okay, we are giving you these, we give close to about $1 million to each of the incubation centers spread across 5 years. We have mandated that 10% of that needs to be invested in the incubators for equity. So there is going to be an equity culture in the incubation center from day one. So that's another area where, we can look at sustainability. Point number 3, in India, the law says that large corporations should give 2% of their profits towards CSR. So over the last couple of years, we are seeing some amount of CSR funds coming in from corporates for incubation centers. So that's another area we are looking to tap. Finally, each incubation center, depending on its strengths, should look at leveraging its resources. Now, if you're a fairly strong incubation center with access to labs, then why don't you invite startups from outside your incubation centers and provide them access to these labs at a nominal price? I'm not saying you charge them a bomb. So that's one area, shared infrastructure. 2, you could have training programs. There are a bunch of interested entrepreneurs out there who may not be incubated with you, but would nevertheless be interested to attend training or entrepreneurship programs that you conduct. So come up with such initiatives that could, kick in some amount of revenue. So these are, I think, 4 or 5 areas as to how we encourage or we push our incubation centers to obtain sustainability. But, this is a problem area, sustainability of incubation centers, because we can't be funding this forever. Each of them needs to come up with a sustainability program as to how it suits them best.
Thank you.
Yeah. So just to add to that, Asim, I think from GAME side, Global Alliance of Mass Entrepreneurship side, I think Mithun mentioned something about 2% of corporate mandatory donation to CSR activities. So there is one area we are working together, which is helping sustain incubators in some places. I'll give you 2-3 examples of incubators which are getting survived, can be sustained. One is in the youth entrepreneurship area. In youth entrepreneurship area, incubations are a good area of sustainability because the youth is nothing but a pipeline for your entrepreneurs to come and go. So within youth entrepreneurship, we are sourcing problem statements. We are bringing an alliance of venture capitalists. We are bringing a community of mentors. Since the problems are sourced from the ecosystem continuously to these incubators, there is a certain sustainability there. The second level where we are looking at it is from a market linkages things. We have involved a certain private parties, certain apex institutions of financial institutions, and we are looking at it in a way that can we create incubators where market linkage is available, the finance is available, and then the infrastructure is available. But like Mithun said, it's a hard task. We are working our way. But these are some of the models by which we are trying to create incubators we can sustain for a long time. That said, thanks for that question. It's a very interesting question. And this is why we are here. We are here to facilitate that cross-border learning, to see, what we have and what you are doing. So today has been a very interesting session. We started with the public procurement as one of the ways to, invigorate entrepreneurship. And we looked at Pakistan's accelerators and the networking model, how it is contributing big to economy and growing up. And we talked about Dr. Fareen's entrepreneurship view of how, you can look at entrepreneurs looks at policy-friendly governments and how they can do better on infrastructure systems. And Mithun's complete articulation on central government, state government, expansion to rural areas, creating virtual incubation center to reach on a mass scale. It has been a fabulous discussion and a fantastic panel. It's a great privilege and honor to host you all. And thank you for making time. And thanks to Andy team for hosting this and making this possible. And thank you, everybody. You have a great day. And thank you again.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Suresh. Thanks, everybody. I second everything that you say. And as the last panel of 3 days of intense discussions, I will reiterate, we see this as the beginning of future conversations, but not just conversations. We hope to be able to convert that to action. As you will be aware, action takes time. We're discussing what we call wicked problems. We're talking about trying to effect, systemic change does not happen overnight. We will look to all of your support to make that happen as a field builder. We will continue to be in touch with you. We hope all of you will engage with us on an ongoing basis. And we look forward to seeing you in the next edition of the South Asia Convening next year, in whichever format that's going to be, not necessarily all virtual. Thanks once again, everybody, for your active participation. It was an absolute pleasure. And I will say until next time, bye for now.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Sucharita.
Thank you.
It was great to be a part of this.
Thank you.